Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast, the football podcast we bring you each and every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Also over on Anchor is the audio versions of our show. And again, if you want to contact the show with a particular topic you'd like us to cover or come on the show as a guest, head over to Facebook, Instagram or Twitter. You can PM and DM us there on the Upper Tier. Joining me tonight for our Manchester United versus Liverpool Super Sunday, rivalries reborn, the two heavyweights of the league. Darren, how are
we?
How
you getting on, man? All good?
Good. It seems, I don't know about you, is it kind of a bit lackluster or something like that? That normally this would be an absolute war, you know what I mean? Gerrard versus Scholes or Keane, or it just seems to lack that. I mean, I suppose we're still trying to push for a top four spot, so it's vital we get a win. Yous are probably trying to cement second. Not that it matters, your top four is guaranteed. And I often say to people, unless you're in a title race, second, third, and fourth is pretty much the same thing. That like your focus really at this stage is on the Europa League and the Europa League final. But yeah, it's kind of like even the previous matches this year, kind of like they didn't have that kind of oomph to it that you would expect for such a rivalry. And maybe, I suppose, because both fan bases are missing through to COVID, that really kills the atmosphere of these games, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, to be honest with you, man, I think that's what it is. I know, the league positions when one of the teams drops out of the top four, maybe it becomes less important to the other, vice versa and stuff like that. But the fans are what makes this game. Like the banter with the fans on the day of the game, going to the game, after the game, and then even on, like if you're a United fan, you get a hiding on a Sunday. Are you picking up the phone on a Monday morning to tell the boss, won't be in, brother? Not feeling very well. Whereas this time we're all working from home anyway, so what does it really matter? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's
safe. That interaction.
It's safe to say, Solskjaer really likes this fixture, doesn't he? Like he has a bit of a bite about him when he's asked about Liverpool. That long Ferguson kind of hate for each other still runs through him, really, doesn't it? Insofar as the way he talks about it and discusses it.
I think he kind of sees it from a fan's point of view.
Yeah.
That's this is the biggest, and I think he'd have it drummed into them lads. You can go away and you can lose to Arsenal and you can get beaten at home by Crystal Palace, but there's 2 games every season you better make sure you punch your ticket for, and it's those 2 Liverpool games. Because it would have meant a lot to him. He's obviously got that winner against us in the FA Cup the year we did the treble. Like, he doesn't score that goal, maybe don't do the treble, and maybe he doesn't end up in the position he's in. You don't know what way things go like that. But it's a big game for him, and I don't necessarily think there's a hate thing. I think he respects Liverpool because I think he understands, the history of Liverpool and what a big club they are, and the fan base and stuff like that. Even as a United fan, like, there is a part of me that kind of, that I kind of think, oh, Liverpool, if I know last season, obviously, City and Liverpool were going for the title, and someone says, oh, we prefer City to win it, and I said, you know what, kind of, I'd be all right with Liverpool winning it. They're a big club with a lot of history. They're going to win it eventually. Why not? I think the respect is there,
Yeah, it's certainly, it's always a kind of an intriguing tie in terms of, I mean, you're coming off the back now of a huge win in the Europa League. You're after smashing Roma out the door, basically. Especially in the second half. I mean, in the first half, it looked a bit tense and a bit iffy, although you're creating chances. Who do you expect them to put out on Sunday? I mean, it's 4:30 Sunday on TV, as should be. Is he going to put out a full team? Is he going to go for this, or?
I'd say he'll go fairly close to what he started tonight. I think he'll probably change Henderson for De Gea, and you might see Greenwood come in for Cavani, because I think he might go with Rashford, and then he'll have Cavani off the bench for the last half an hour if it's close or something like that. Other than that, I couldn't see too many changes, to be honest with you. Because obviously, it's United Liverpool. He knows, fans or no fans, he knows that, we gotta go looking for 3 points here.
I suppose outside of the fan base thing, I mean, apart from the rivalry, obviously, I mean, for you guys, the game is kind of meaningless except for bragging rights. For us, it's obviously much more important because we are still trying to hunt down the top four spot and we still have a chance. Is there a case for him playing the likes of Donny and all on Sunday and kind of throwing him in there, knowing that, like, you're on the path to the final, you've cemented top four, you know, do you really need the bragging right end of it? Or is it a case where maybe it's a chance to throw in some players because I suppose almost being in the final of the Europa League, you'll probably still start the game on Thursday, the second leg, with a reasonably strong starting 11, at least initially, to see how it goes. So you don't suddenly give away like an early goal or two and suddenly go, what's going on here, and have a bit of a wobble. So I don't know. I wonder on Sunday, is there a case for putting in Van de Beek and maybe a player or two like that and just give them a run out against Liverpool at the moment too. I mean, again, we had found a bit of form. We were playing well. I mean, we played really well against Leeds in the first half. We collapsed in the second half, ended up being a draw, giving a late goal away. We absolutely butchered Newcastle last week. Couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. Ended up being 1-1. In theory, Newcastle could have won the game 2-1 in the end. In reality, I mean, it was harsh on Wilson. I just don't know. I just think for Solskjaer, I think it might be an opportunity to put players in like that, maybe in a reasonably big fixture, but not meaningful, if you like, except for banter.
I don't know, man. I don't think there's ever a meaningless fixture between United and Liverpool, or even a couple of years ago when we played in that pre-season in the States, didn't we? And, there was lads talking about, we beat us the next day. That was a friendly. But there was still, you still wanted to beat him because it was Liverpool. I personally think he'll go close to what he played tonight. I think you might see Henderson and Greenwood, and at a stretch, Daniel James,
Yeah.
But I think he'll go fairly strong because he does want to cement that second, and it's Liverpool. I think he'll take the chance on Thursday night, to be honest with you. We're 4 goals up, like I think he'd be happy enough to put out maybe the likes of Lindelof and Boy next Thursday night, and then maybe put Matic in front of them, maybe play 3 centre midfielders and keep it really, really tight. Because I mean, we can go out there and lose 3-0, and still go through.
Yeah.
So I don't think he'll be, and I think after seeing the way, Roman know they're going to come out next week and have to absolutely go, ball to the wall to try and beat us. And when they do, there's got to be an awful lot of space. I definitely expect Dan James to start next Thursday night because I think there's going to be so much space in behind. And he has started most of our Europa League games away. So I think he'll play him and Bruno and probably Cavani and Greenwood, maybe something like that. And you'll get more pace in behind. And that's,
Yeah. Where do you see? I mean, it's normally an obvious question, but Salah's really the danger for Liverpool, really, isn't he? Because he is the one who does put the ball in the back of the net consistently. Mane has been out of form. Firmino has been out of form. Jota has come back, but he seems to have been struggling a little bit since he came back. He just seems to be off about a half a yard or so every time, just slightly off. But he could potentially, if he plays, have a big game against on Sunday. Jota. He's kind of due a performance at this stage, and he's been back now for a few.
I'd prefer to see Firmino start than Jota. Because I think Jota's movement and his pace could cause Lindelof and Maguire trouble. I think if it's Firmino and he kind of stands up against, I know he likes to come a little bit deeper and stuff like that, but I think Maguire will come with him and that'll suit us down to the ground, to be honest with you. I know Wan-Bissaka will obviously end up one-on-one with Mane. I'm not overly worried there, not necessarily because, Mane's not a good player. We know he's an excellent player, but just because of the form he's been in. And again, Salah is, again, the danger. But Luke Shaw is just playing out of his skin at the minute. He really, really is. So, I'm not going into it dreading it, thinking, there's goals coming from everywhere and, we're going to be on the back foot. Like, if we turn up, I really think we should beat just comfortably. And I know that's a massive, I think if we turn up and we put in a performance like like we did in the second half tonight. You know, we blew Roma away, and I think we could blow you away as well, to be honest with you. Um,
Do you think there's a case for Rashford going back onto the left against Trent?
well, he's had great experiences in the past with him, hasn't he? You know, obviously Trent got subbed that game at Old Trafford when Rashford, you know, dug him out really. But yeah, I think there's a possibility, all right, you know, and maybe he'll play Cavani through the middle and play Greenwood on the right end maybe. But yeah, I don't know, because you know Pogba brings something different. Although it's not necessarily what Rashford does. Rashford obviously he's a little more direct and he's got the pace and he's got to check back in onto that right hand side and let go, you know. But Pogba's been playing well for us. I know Solskjaer's kind of minding him a little bit. He hasn't played him every game. He didn't play him against Leeds until the last few minutes, and probably why we didn't get a goal like we should have, you know. But yeah, there's a case to be made for it, I suppose. But I'd be happier to see Pogba, to be honest with you, man. I just think he comes in between the lines very, very well. He's not an out left sided midfielder, you know, we can see that. But he picks up really, really good positions. I think when he comes inside onto his right foot, he's able to spray that ball out wide, or he can pick a pass out through the centre. And it's that guessing that is making him so difficult to mark. I think with Rashford, you know what he's going to do. He's going to check inside and ping it. Whereas Pogba isn't going to do that. He slides the ball off to Bruno, and then maybe goes back in behind you and looks for the ball over the top or through the middle, or he puts a ball in himself, and it keeps guys guessing. And I think with Alexander-Arnold being so physical, but not necessarily being as good as defender as he could be, I think playing Pogba could be the card, to be honest with you, man.
Yeah, and then I mean you would assume based on the performance in the Europa League, I mean Cavani's going to start, isn't he?
Yeah, you think that, but again, like last week against Leeds, you know, you're thinking he's going to start and he leaves the boys on the bench, and then you're kind of scraping at the last minute to try and get a goal. So it's kind of all up in the air at the minute what he does. I'd love to see him starting, because I think again against it's going to be Kabak and it'll be Kabak and Williams probably, or Phillips.
I don't know what way they're going to do it, because Phillips, I know, was carrying an injury. So Fabinho was in there again against Newcastle, which to me is just a disaster. I just don't know why they keep, you know, they've persisted with it for so long, and we know it just hasn't worked, and then we revert back to type again, you know. And it's just,
and he's a real miss in the middle of the park. Yeah. You know, like in the middle of the park, he's a Rolls Royce. He really is. Yeah. You know, the way he takes the ball from the back four, opens out, sprays a ball, and he's not a guy that necessarily sits and waits. Then he's following up with the play. He's looking to link it across like that. I don't know why. Is the boy they got from Preston? What's wrong with him? He hasn't had a sniff, has he?
No, he hasn't. And to be honest, I don't think he will. I know he came in and I think he had a bit of a knee issue or something like that, so he didn't really get a look in. And then I think probably the form of Kabak and Phillips when they were playing together, they had done so well, there was no point in changing it. My gut feel is in the summer, he'll probably end up moving on to Chelsea or to Celtic, where he wanted to go originally, and I think they'll just go through with that. You know what I mean? I didn't understand it in the first place anyway. You know what I mean? It was really just filling numbers.
I suppose I understood it if Kabak wasn't on the cards.
Yeah.
But when you got Kabak, now the only thing about Kabak is I'm not really sure if I've made my mind up about him. I've seen him at times and I thought, Jesus, this kid could be a really, really good baller. Then I've seen him at other times and go, his positioning sense seemed to be really, really poor. And for a guy that's quite quick, he was always getting turned and left out of position, you know. But I don't know how you see it.
Yeah, no, I think since he came in, he's done well, because I mean he did come in from Schalke, who were bottom of the Bundesliga, and it was difficult time there, you know. So it was kind of a strange decision to bring him in. I think the cost is about 18 million if we end up keeping him. But he has shown at times shades of being a really, really good player. At times he sort of, he's a bit awkward in the tackle or something like that, and he gets booked. He just seems a little bit awkward. But at times he has played really, really well with that combination with Nat Phillips. And I think if he got a bit of time maybe with Virgil, I think it would make a huge difference to him in terms of his understanding. So I don't know. It's hard. I mean, he got dropped into the meat grinder at Liverpool as well. It's like, there you go. We need you. Boom. No one there. Everyone was injured. And he kind of
Yeah,
got thrown in. It's a big ask as well, coming in, trying to get used to the Premiership from the bottom of the Bundesliga, getting thrown into that weight of expectation at Liverpool as well.
yeah.
But I think if he gets a season under his belt, and I think if we do make the move permanent, I think he could do okay. You know what I mean?
I think a lad at that age, with the possibilities to be as good as he could be, 18 million's a no-brainer. I
Yeah.
mean, even if he's your third choice behind Gomez and Van
Yeah.
Dijk, it's a no-brainer for Liverpool.
Yeah.
But you don't know what way the finances are going to be in the summer with the way this thing is going.
Yeah.
That's the
Well, I
other
think
problem.
I think they've more or less done the deal for Konate as well. I think that's done. So that will have a big impact on it as well. But there was no doubt. I mean, we had to raise the level of the bench in terms of central defence, because Reece Williams came in and he got shown up a couple of times. A couple of times he had a couple of good performances, but a couple of times he got shown up to be really sort of he hadn't got the experience that he needed, let's say. And I think he could do with a couple of seasons out on loan to try and let him sort of mature and get his head around it. But I think if Konate comes in, I mean, Konate, you would think, would be pushing Gomez for his spot. So
Yeah, I think so. I
that,
think from what I've seen of him, because obviously United played them in the group stages, and the night at Old Trafford, we tore them asunder, and we had been linked with Upamecano before it, and United fans were kind of at odds, and they were like, "Jesus, the boy beside him's twice the player he is."
Yeah.
So, and I think if it's in and around the 30, did I say 30, 35 million?
Yeah, it's 35 million euro, 33 to 35 million euro. It's about 30 million pound, basically.
If it's a guy that's going to come in and play in your starting 11, it's not bad value at centre back. And he's young, he's athletic, he reads the game well. He's probably a leader for the next few years as well. That you can build him up maybe to take an armband if Virgil's not there or whatever. It seems a no-brainer again, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah. More often than not on this podcast, we get excited about matches coming up and we make predictions. And so far, we've been terrible, to say the least, in terms of how we think matches are going to go, like whether they're going to be open, is there going to be goals. What's your prediction for Sunday?
Yeah, I don't see it being very, very expansive, because I don't think the game lends itself to that. It'll be cagey enough to begin with. Probably the odd goal or two, maybe 1-1, something like that. Maybe United nick it. If United went and got a goal early, I think from a viewer point of view, that'd obviously be ideal. Because I know Liverpool won't want to play defensive football either, because it's not their strength at the minute. But I think they'd be happy enough to sit back and say to United, listen, see what you can do, see if you can open the lock, and if not, we'll have the boys ready to pounce at the other end, But yeah, if an early goal, there could be floodgates, but I think, to be honest with you, it'll probably be cage enough, and you're probably talking 1-1 or maybe 2-1 to United.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was kind of thinking a score draw. That's what I was kind of thinking, which doesn't really help our position in the race for a top four. I mean, I think if we don't get a win on Sunday, I think it's probably, I would nearly think that it's done for us. I know there's a couple of interesting fixtures coming up. I know kind of Chelsea and Leicester and United, I think, have to play as well. Leicester or something like that. I think there's fixtures coming up that would help us. But I think with dropping the points the other day to Newcastle, and I think with dropping the points at Leeds has really damaged us. And I think nothing less than a win on Sunday would keep us in the hunt for a top four. I think if that gap opens up anymore, we can forget about it.
I think the big mistake was the Leeds and Newcastle games, because obviously if you were looking at from a Liverpool point of view, you'd say, okay, we take 3 against Newcastle and 3 against Leeds. And that means if we go to United, get a draw, we've picked up 7, we're unbeaten. And we can maybe keep the ball rolling. Whereas now, you've 2, so at a best case scenario, you can have 5, and even that's now an uphill task, coming in with the confidence levels, lower than they should be. The only thing I'll say is, obviously, they've had the week to prepare, so they'll be fresher. Maybe because United are now in a final, pretty much, and they've almost guaranteed second. Will Liverpool also be hungrier because they are fighting for something?
Yeah.
There's a possibility that'll happen as well,
Yeah, I found this season above all other seasons when we have a longer break and we have a full week, that's when we fucking screw up, basically. You know what I mean? I think if we had more games and we kept the ball rolling, I think it
Yeah,
gives us a chance to play out of that kind of iffy kind of form, if you like.
yeah,
I think when we have a week, we have too much time to think and dwell on what's happened, as opposed to games coming at us thick and fast,
yeah. Because if you can pick up a result very quickly, and I know that's something the lads that played under Ferguson said. At one stage, they weren't even training because the games are coming so quick. So what happened
Yeah.
was you were away in the Champions League on a Wednesday, then you were maybe home on a Saturday evening or a Sunday, whatever it was, and then you were back, and it was just recovery, travel,
Yeah.
recovery, travel, game, recovery, and they just bounced from game to game. And the great thing was that if you got a defeat, you're only waiting 3 days to try and get a victory then and put it to bed.
Yeah, which is ultimately what players want. I mean, they want match after match after match. They don't necessarily want to be training. The matches is really where it's at. That's their payoff for their hard work, really. You know what I mean? But yeah, and an intriguing tie coming up on Sunday. It will be mouth-watering. There's no doubt about it. There will be that rivalry will still be there, especially between Klopp and Solskjaer. We'll be looking forward to the pressers will be coming up over the next day or so. The press conferences between them is always intriguing as well in terms of the wording.
The L reporters will have to put the gloves on for dealing with Jurgen Mount. He's a bit spiky these days, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he has been, he was for a while, and then he kind of came back and was slightly happier, if you like. And now he's after getting a little bit spikier again. And I don't know. I think in his case, I just think it's been a rough season for us at Liverpool. You know, I mean, we've had so much go against us, and there's been a lot of tragedy there with Becker's dad tragically passing away, and obviously Jurgen Klopp's mother passing away, and not being able to give these people the send off that you'd want and give them the time to mourn and grieve, and then the weight of the expectation of the fan base. And at Christmas time we were top of the league, and then we've stumbled and injuries and more injuries and COVID and no fans and this ESL crap, and it's just been one thing after another. It's just one of those years I'd like to put out of my mind in terms of, and not because like we haven't been competitive or not, because that, but just it's just been a shit year really. If you're a Liverpool fan,
he definitely looks like he's felt the year. Like I can sympathize with him. Obviously, my own dad passed away in January, and I know myself I haven't been the way I would day to day. So that's got to play on his mind. I do think if you had the fans there, it might lift him a bit, because he is a guy that's I imagine when he walks out at Anfield on a match day, the hairs on his arm stands up, and that energizes him to go and do what he has to do, and he does look a bit flat. He looks like he needs a bit of time off to recharge the batteries and get his head in a good space, But I think when with a couple of additions, we know the type of football they can play. I expect Jota to have a massive season for you next year, and obviously you'll have Big Virgil back. A couple of well placed additions, 2 to 3. My centre back and another attacker maybe, and obviously a midfielder to replace Wijnaldum if he does head. Like they're not going to be a million miles away next season, and they're not going to have the European thing to worry about either, more than likely.
Yeah, and I think as well. I think they'll definitely bounce back, because I think they'll have a point to prove, because they're hurting this year. You know what I mean? I mean, they've done themselves a disservice, really. And I know all the teams turn around and say, well, no one has had any fans in, but I think for our respective clubs, Liverpool and Man United, when you go into Old Trafford and it's a full house, it's a different place. When you go into Anfield and it's a full house, it's a different world. It's a different level. And I know all the teams in the Premier League will turn around and say, oh, well, none of us had fans, but you know what I mean? No disrespect to those other teams. It's not the same situation. It just really
no, not at all. United have numbers on their side because there's 79,500. I've actually been to Anfield twice. I was there when I was a kid with a football team, and the German lads are behind the goal, all the German Liverpool fans and stuff like that. Now, this is 1994, and it was epic. Even as a United fan at the time, you are like, wow. The stadium itself wasn't in great nick. It was, it's probably still needs the work done to it, but the fan base, they're so passionate. I mean, the Liverpool, on a Champions League night, you've been there yourself. Like when that ball is shaking in the middle of the pitch and that music comes on, and then the You'll Never Walk Alone comes along, like that's got to be special as a footballer. And to not have that, you're really getting robbed of something, aren't you?
Yeah, I think unless you're a fan of both our respective clubs, you don't really, you kind of, you slightly understand it, but you don't really get what the kind of energy that brings.
Yeah.
You can imagine, like, if you're a Jordan Henderson walking out there and your chest is puffed out and the cop is in full voice and the banners are going and, things are going the way they should and all, I mean, you must feel about 10 foot tall and about 8 foot wide in terms of what you're capable of doing, and it's just...
You definitely feel like the impossible is possible, I mean, you only have to go back last season to the Barcelona game. Obviously the first leg, you were pretty much dead and buried. But as much as the players dug you out that night, the fans, they put the fear of God into Barcelona as well. Yeah. And all of a sudden they went, Jesus, do these boys think they can win this? Put a bit of doubt in their mind. And Liverpool were able to jump all over that,
Yeah, absolutely. But sure, we'll look forward to Sunday. Hopefully we can get a result in keeping that race for top four. Like I said, for you guys, it's really only a spectacle, to be honest. I mean, your top four is cemented. And even second place, I can't see Leicester taking second place off you. But it's vital for us. I mean, in terms of Champions League as well, we really need that to be able to attract in the right type of player as well. So again, thanks for coming on for this Manchester United versus Liverpool preview. Again, head over to YouTube, Dynamo Podcast Network. Darren, a pleasure as always. Cheers, my friend.